I never thought a driveway could teach me more about people than a dozen neighborhood meetings ever did. It started with one wrong turn hers, and by the time it was over I had a neat arc of boulders, a stack of permits, and a neighborhood that tasted like old coffee whenever someone raised the subject. My name's Mark Evans. I run a small landscaping crew. I drink my coffee black, and I thought I knew how to handle a handful of nosy neighbors. I was wrong. Gloria Hale lived 2 houses down on the corner lot, the kind of person who knows everyone's birthdays and owns a calendar of influence. She volunteered, she hosted, she chaired committees, and she had a way of turning suggestions into rules. At first it was harmless, trimming a branch here, moving a flower bed there. I was happy to help. Tidy streets are good for business. Then she started cutting across my driveway every day, as if a paved shortcut had appeared for her. I left polite notes, waved when she walked by, tried to be neighborly, the ordinary stuff. One afternoon a neighbor stopped me on the sidewalk and said, "Mark, she's been letting people pass through your yard for favors. Not a formal toll, but favors and priority parking at events, a quiet kind of currency." That felt wrong. I thought about bringing it up at the HOA, but Gloria was the HOA. She'd been on the board so long her opinion carried weight like a gavel. Lawyers were an option, but lawsuits eat months and money and your sleep. So I did what I do. I designed a boundary. A tasteful arc of river stones leading to 5 larger boulders set so a person on foot or a bike could pass, but a car could not. I had a surveyor mark the property line. I filed for the county permit, and I ordered the stones. The morning the truck dropped them off, I worked in the early light, setting each rock so it read like intention rather than defense. I wanted it to be practical and, if I could swing it, a little beautiful. She didn't see beauty. Gloria pulled up in her sedan the day after the stones were set, planted it like a flag, and stepped out with a clipboard and a smile that said she expected praise. She looked at the arc and asked, loud enough for 2 neighbors on porches to hear, "Mark, what is that?" I wiped my hands on my jeans, kept my voice steady, and said, "A permanent landscape feature. It's permitted." Her face went small. She'd been used to being the first voice. Suddenly paperwork answered her. Her immediate move was to control the story. She called neighbors, framed the stones as dangerous and anti-community, and she filed a formal complaint with the HOA demanding removal. She hired someone to take photos, close-up shots designed to make the arc look like a hazard, and she dropped flyers in mailboxes asking folks to petition me to remove the obstruction. It wasn't loud, but it was precise, a slow, surgical tightening of influence. People began to whisper. Some called to ask questions. A few old friends of hers looked unsure. The sheriff's deputy came a week later. The whole block watched from windows and porches. Drama in a small town is the polite kind of entertainment. He read my permits, paced the stones, checked the spacing, and then he looked at Gloria's complaint. He didn't smile. He didn't declare a winner. He said, "Everything appears to be in order," and left. That should have settled it. It didn't. When the law couldn't change the outcome she aimed for, she attacked perception. Gloria sent a carefully worded email with selective quotes and suggested that I'd created a public hazard. People started to second-guess what they'd once shrugged at. The burden of being reasonable felt like guilt. At barbecues my name would come up in a sentence that trailed off. Someone would say, "Well, Mark did do it himself," as if acting were the same as being wrong. So I shifted my strategy. If she wanted to wage war in people's heads, I would put facts where their heads were looking. I gathered every receipt, every email where I'd asked for a conversation and received silence, every invitation she'd used to host the same handful of supporters. I printed the survey, the permit, the contractor affidavit, and I organized a meeting, folding chairs on the little green across the street, lemonade someone brought, a quiet table with documents laid out. She showed up with the practiced charm of someone who'd spent a lifetime organizing consent. "This is a misunderstanding," she said, with the cadence of someone used to closing rooms. But when I spoke plainly and distributed the documents, voices shifted. A man who had once defended her leadership cleared his throat and asked, "So you asked and they ignored you?" A neighbor read aloud a receipt that showed donations funneled through a social fund that seemed to benefit certain attendees. People started to see a pattern instead of a rumor. She fought back in small, bureaucratic ways. Another complaint, more selective photos, emails that implied danger. Power in small places is subtle. It's who gets invited, whose name closes a meeting, whose concern becomes the shorthand for community will. Gloria knew how to make her version of reality stick until it didn't. The combination of public evidence and public testimony unstitched her advantage. A couple of board members who had been neutral quietly told me they couldn't ignore the documents, and the board asked Gloria to step aside to allow the HOA to rebuild trust. Her resignation was short and formal, thanking everyone for their cooperation. A month later, her house was listed and then sold. She left with the same decisive energy she used to wield influence. The stones remained. Neighbors started to treat them like a turning point rather than a provocation. Someone set a pot of lavender by the largest rock. Another hung a tiny bird feeder on a nearby post, and the ark became a small landmark. Turn left at the stones. It didn't feel like a monument to me. It felt like a practical, visible answer. Some people thought I overreacted, and that conversation might have worked. I accept that. There's a cost to drawing a line. You have to be ready for the ripple. I won't pretend it didn't cost me something. There were mornings when neighbors avoided my gaze, nights I replayed conversations wondering if I'd been petty, and afternoons when a simple walk down the block felt heavier. Standing my ground sometimes felt like stepping on a stage I hadn't auditioned for, but holding a clear record, permits, emails, receipts lifted a weight. The stones didn't cure every quiet tension. They only settled one question: who had the right to treat my property like a shortcut? I remember one moment sharp as a photograph. Gloria stood at the ark, hands on her hips, and said, "You think you can tell me what to do on our street?" I stepped closer, not to be loud, but because truth sometimes needs proximity, and I said, "I think I can tell you what you can't do on my property." Her jaw tightened, and for a second the woman who organized potlucks looked like someone who'd never been challenged. Someone from across the street called, "Act like adults," and Gloria laughed too quickly. It was the sound of a script losing momentum. Then there was the tiny digital aftershock. A neighbor posted a photo of the stones with a caption questioning my motives, and the thread that followed was messy and human. Some defended me, some defended Gloria, and suddenly opinions were a public thing. That online conversation pushed a few more people to come to the green and read the documents for themselves. When facts are accessible, conversation tends to follow. This story doesn't end with a tidy moral. Influence and service can look the same, and sometimes the person who keeps a neighborhood tidy also keeps a ledger of favors. If you find yourself in that blur, document. Use the rules honestly, not as a cudgel. For me, that meant doing the work. Permits, surveys, and a public meeting that put the pattern on the table. For someone else, it might mean mediation, a third-party facilitator, or walking away. So tell me, did I do the right thing, or did I escalate when a conversation might have sufficed? Have you ever dealt with someone who quietly took control of your community with charm and paperwork? Drop a comment, share your story, and tell me where you stand. Justice or overreaction, community or control. These moments remake neighborhoods, and I want to know how yours turned out.